Hey everyone, so One Piece chapter 1014 just came out, and there's a lot to get through this chapter. So much happened, and the narrative could go so many directions from here. Even just starting from the beginning is difficult because, just what you think of Luffy's defeat and whether or not we're going to find out more about it, how conclusive this was, what point in the story Luffy's going to come back, if he's going to come back, all of these things. There's like options on options on options, different branches things could go out, so I'm going to try and get through this as best as we can. Let me tell you right now, I did bring my dog today to film, so you might see him walking around in the background or just hear some weird noises. That's just him being, disruptive. So, anyway, starting from the top, we get to see a little bit more of like what happened after Kaido tossed Luffy off. And I was personally hoping for a bit of a flashback or something like that to kind of showcase the actual defeat. The fact that we didn't get one has me thinking some things. I guess we'll get to that in a second. But let me just say right now, Luffy actually falling into the water was a big, big deal because many of us, myself included, believed that someone would come in to save him because, just Luffy falling straight into the ocean. That's probably one of the worst looks for him that we've ever seen in the series. I guess like the closest thing was in Arlong Park, in the middle of a final battle falling into the ocean. The closest thing as we can remember was Arlong Park, but that was more of a swimming pool and people could come in and help him out. So to me, at this moment in time, Momonosuke, as far as we know, Devil Fruit user, artificial Devil Fruit, yes, but I would assume he can't actually go in there and save him, and it doesn't even look like he's in a situation to do that. I'm not sure. Maybe we find out artificial Devil Fruit users can go into the water, and that's one of the advantages of being an artificial Devil Fruit user, but I wouldn't count on it just yet. Maybe. I like the idea, but I don't know. Yamato, most likely a real Devil Fruit user from what we've been hinted at, probably can't help him whatsoever. Everybody else occupied in fights. Jinbei can't come in and save him. So I would think that, honestly, the only thing that I'm thinking of that can help him right now are the carp. As weird as that sounds, it's not crazy to think that the carp could help him out. Because this is not the first time this has happened that actually Luffy has been in this situation in Wano, to be fair, right? That, I think at the very beginning of the arc, even just getting to the top of the waterfall, somehow Luffy ended up washed up on the shores of Wano. I think that could, possibly that could happen again. Or maybe Luffy's carp friends from before could just help him out and piggyback him over to the shore of Wano. So I don't know, there's different routes it could go. Either a character could save him, which that's going down in terms of likelihood, I suppose, in terms of just what character could be able to do that right now. And then the other option of just getting to the shore through natural means, be that on the back of a carp or just washing ashore, those are possibilities as well. I guess the start of the Wano arc is a little different because it was the whirlpool situation, so I guess a whirlpool tossed him onto shore, so maybe really just have to count on the carp. I'm gonna stop talking about the carp, but it's a hard, how does he make it out of here? It's a hard call, it's difficult to figure out. So, let's leave that aside for the moment. What do we feel about Luffy's defeat here? And I think we can just talk about how the impact of Luffy's defeat played out over the course of the chapter and just kind of talk about the chapter as a whole and the feel that we kind of got from it. Because the fact that we didn't see the defeat is very interesting to me. And the fact that Kaido kind of thought to himself at the end of last chapter that he kind of mused about hope and how they didn't actually see Luffy die. If he had brought Luffy their head, that would be more impactful. But now they're going to keep believing. At least that is how he felt at the end of last chapter. He still wanted to announce his defeat at the end of this, or at the start of this chapter, which did come across. And we got to see everybody react to, the idea that Luffy has been defeated. So we saw some more worried faces, Law, Marco, and such. A little harder to read faces from the rest of the Straw Hats. And then just a straight up, aggressive denial of that, of the demand to surrender from Zoro and Sanji, which I like to see. I like seeing those two on the same wavelength frequently. So, it's a hard to read situation just because when you write in the protagonist being defeated, how do you want the reader to feel, I suppose, in that situation? It is very strange to me that Oda chose to off-screen this defeat. It's kind of if he wants to go for the effect. By the way, people were telling me, look, full context, people were telling me that the raid looks like it's gonna fail, No, if I'm being honest with myself, what it looks like more so is this sort of honestly standard situation of Luffy gets taken out of the picture for a little bit, everybody else gets their fights, Luffy comes back into the picture to get one final go at the final villain and defeats him. That happens fairly frequently, so this isn't actually anything crazy or pointing towards the raid failing. If anything, this actually fits more so the formula that, we kind of, got Luffy out of the picture momentarily, everybody else can handle their fights, and then Luffy can come back through some means to finish his fight. However, I don't get why Oda chose to do things the way that he did, if that is the case, because in that case, you would still want to show Luffy being defeated by Kaido. Like, that scene is very, very important for the tone and the tension of this segment of the arc. If this is where Oda is trying to actually build in that sense of, high stakes conflict and everything like that, it is very strange to kind of just do it in such a, I don't know, checking off a box sort of a manner where like, oh yeah, let's throw in a panel of Luffy being defeated. Like, compare this to what happened in Alabasta, either of those 2 rounds in Alabasta where Luffy lost, where the impact of his defeat really, really hit home, and we saw the effect that had on the protagonist, on the rest of the Straw Hats, right? Especially the first one. The first one mainly where they were really, really worried. Usopp even thought that, remember the Straw Hats reacting to being told that Luffy had died, etc., etc. So it is very, very difficult to figure out kind of from here. I would obviously personally prefer to believe, based on certain other factors, the fact that like Ulti and Page 1 have been taken out of the picture, the fact that Zoro at the very least still looks like he's out of commission, the fact that Oda seemed to put so little effort into Luffy's defeat in the first place, and the fact that Kaido kind of thought towards the end of the last chapter that, this isn't actually going to impact the Alliance's feelings whatsoever in terms of like their sense of hope or belief in themselves. So I think just the fact that there's a sort of self-awareness that this feels like it's kind of checking off a box and doesn't actually feel that impactful does give me hope that there is a bigger defeat. Like, we are going to go through that standard motion of Luffy coming back for one more attempt and then actually getting to see Luffy lose in front of the Alliance, which to me has been implied to be very important to actually shaking or shattering their faith in him, or at least giving them a rough time in terms of how they feel, in terms of their confidence that they can win, and actually giving them a conflict or like a low point that they need to come back from. As opposed to right now where, again, tension's just not really there because we didn't see, like, it was just a panel of Luffy losing and us being told that Luffy lost. That's a far cry from, losing to Crocodile in the desert or something like that. It's a far cry from like the Straw Hats even kind of really caring or feeling very affected by it or actually thinking that Luffy's going to be defeated. The fact that they're not even going to be that shaken up about it, I don't know. Let's find out. Let's see how things go going forward, but I will say that if this defeat was Luffy's main defeat for the arc, then I can only hope that we get a really good flashback of it happening so that we can actually feel something from it rather than just being told that Luffy was defeated, which is, I don't know, a far cry from Oda's usual standard, right? And on the flip side, if this is more so a red herring to make us think that Luffy, we're getting the Luffy lost out of the way so that Luffy can come in and actually have a big unexpected loss, then I would really, really enjoy that, obviously, as you all know. So, all of that aside, the other events of the chapter, interesting stuff, interesting lore-based stuff being teased, such as, for example, Momonosuke. There's something that he has discovered, most likely about himself, which has led him to realize that he cannot die, so there's some crucial role that he plays in the role of the world, in the, future of the world, right? Joy Boy. The idea that there is supposed to be another Joy Boy, maybe, like, is it reincarnation or is it a role? I think I'm leaning more towards the idea that it's a role at this point. I think when the idea that, the next Joy, when that first started popping up through Roger's flashback, I think a lot of us were sort of concerned that this was the idea of reincarnation coming into play in the One Piece, which we didn't really want anything of. So the idea that it's being hinted at least to me, that it's more so a role to be taken up or a position to be filled, I really like that. I would be totally okay if Luffy is that. If it's someone unexpected, such as Momonosuke or something, then I would be 100% on board with that as well. So the Joy Boy aspects, what Momonosuke is looking at, a lot of teaser stuff that Oda knows what he's... Oda knows the questions that are going to be popping up in our heads after this, so a lot of theories and everything like that are going to be floating around. I definitely enjoyed that aspect of this chapter. Chopper, I have very little to say on Chopper. I would say that right now, whatever he is doing against Queen seems to be way, way, way above his pay grade. I don't think any of us imagined Chopper messing with Queen in the slot. Obviously, Queen is not affected or anything like that. Chopper even makes a point of saying that, but like, it's just, this is a Yonko commander. I mean, think back to how much trouble Luffy had against Cracker. Just against Cracker back then, even in Gear 4th. So, the fact that Chopper is even attempting to do anything to Queen, and the fact that Chopper hasn't been immediately destroyed is pretty surprising. So, I don't know, nothing much to say about that. I think that I like the fact that Chopper actually improved his Rumble Ball. The fact that Caesar was involved is kind of funny, because it just reminds me of the times that some people thought that Caesar might be one of the next Nakama or something like that. Just the fact that Caesar has been, you know, a little more helpful than anyone would have expected from the start, you know, going back to Punk Hazard or anything like that. So I do like the fact that it's established that Chopper can stay in Monster Point a lot longer than before. That's good. That's kind of the bare minimum you need. But I do not expect Chopper to be the long-term opponent of Queen for the rest of this arc whatsoever. I do expect Sanji to be swapping in, and possibly a Phoenix Flame healed up Zoro. Possibly. That aside, ending of the chapter, Kiku, Kanjuro, Kinemon. So, it's rough, man, that Oda, like, over time, like, are these real deaths? Like, that's the problem. That's it. Like, I think they're good. These are good death scenes okay, so from the start, I was wondering for a while why Kiku Kanjuro, that was the thing that was being played up. I realize now, or at least I feel now, that it was more so for the sake of Kinemon. I think Kinemon ultimately was set up to be, like, this was the matchup that sort of made sense to me. Kinemon versus Kanjuro. Having Kanjuro first, I suppose, take out Kiku was a really good way to give Kinemon one last extra. There feels like a little extra oomph in Kinemon coming in and cutting down Kanjuro, right? So, because it's not just the entire betrayal and everything like that, but even seeing Kanjuro kill Kiku in front of his eyes. Kill Kiku, we don't know yet. Kill her in front of his eyes. That just gives like a little extra oomph to me for Kinemon coming in like with a lot of rage and just wanting to take Kanjuro out. And I hope that he did. It just feels right. It feels right that each of them died here. It just feels right. It feels like that's the way it should be, but that's what I thought with Pound, you know? That's what I thought with Pell. It's Ashura Doji I don't count. Ashura Doji, I think, to me to me that feels very clear that it wasn't much of a death. Like, Kiku got this nice little monologue and everything like that on the way out, something about the falling snow, something like that. Okay, I won't say it's a nice I thought it was kind of a generic monologue, but it was something, okay? So, it still felt like a death scene. Ashura Doji's does feel like a fake out to me, but I still can't feel 100% for sure that, you know, this was the death scene for Kiku. I think if I reread the arc from start to finish, I think that this would be a really strong moment, because Kinemon and Kiku, we were told from the beginning that they did have a bit of a special bond, and that Kiku treated Kinemon as her master and everything like that. Like, even from Act 1, their dynamic was the one that they were the two scabbards that we started the entire storyline with, essentially. And so now it's coming down to this, where Kanjuro is killing one of them, and Kinemon is forced to kill Kanjuro. We would not have imagined any of that towards the start of the arc. I think that is a potentially very powerful storyline if it all comes through, in that they are actually dead. And I'm just sad that, like, I have to say any of that. But that's the reality of it, right? This is just the way we feel about One Piece at this point. So, I like to think that they're dead. I am not going to be so it's kind of a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me sort of situation. It's just, like, how many times am I going to be faked out with these deaths before I learn my lesson? So I'm just going to wait. I'm not going to assume anyone is dead out of this trio. I like to think they are, but I'm not going to assume. With Kinemon, I do think that it's very possible, at the very least, that he did not die from that final blow, because I would think that Kinemon's death would warrant a full chapter or half chapter, because that's just the size of, or the scale of a character that he's become at this point. And I do think that he deserves a full chapter, at least a half chapter, a full chapter at least, that's titled, you know, Kinemon, Foxfire Kinemon, etc. Because, you know, Kinemon has just become, I've mentioned this multiple times, but I don't know the point that he became a character that I actually genuinely cared about, because I did not care about him in Punk Hazard. I didn't care about him in Dressrosa. I don't know if I cared about him in Zou. I think just over the course of Wano, my respect for the character and just maybe the fact that he just feels like such a regular dude that's trying to put all of this stuff on his back and really make this really, really big event happen. I don't know, like, it doesn't feel like he's the guy that would be doing it, if that makes sense. He's clearly filling the shoes of someone much bigger, which is Odin, but the fact that he stepped up as a leader, I'm going to save my Kinemon thoughts till the chapter where he actually dies, I suppose. We don't have to get into it too much here, but I really hope that it wasn't, if Kinemon is to die, I hope Kinemon dies. I hope that this blow was not just the finishing blow, because I do hope that we get a little bit more of a played out scene where we get to see Kinemon just fully sacrifice himself. So I hope that next chapter maybe he survived and we get some last words between him and Momonosuke before Kaido kills him for good, essentially. That's where I'm at. Yeah, I think that that's it for this chapter. I'm really looking forward to next chapter because the story can just go so many ways from here. So I will talk to you all next week.